I never thought I'd find myself in a situation like this. I mean, everyone knows marriage can have its ups and downs, but I always believed that cheating was something that happened to other people, not to me. My name is Jake, and I was married to Lisa for 6 years. At least that's what I thought. Our marriage was the kind where we shared chores, went on vacations, and laughed over dinner. We had our routines, and for the most part, I thought we were happy. But over the past few months, things began to feel off. It started subtly. Lisa began spending more time at the gym, and I thought it was great that she was taking care of herself. But soon she was going to the gym at odd hours, saying she was taking a class. When I'd ask if I could join, she'd brush me off with a quick, "It's a specialized course, babe." I took it at face value until I noticed her phone lighting up with notifications at all hours. The way she'd quickly swipe it away whenever I walked in the room raised a few red flags, but I didn't want to jump to conclusions. I remember one particular evening when I noticed she had a different perfume on. It was a sweet scent, one I hadn't smelled before. When I asked her about it, she just laughed it off, claiming she got a new sample from a friend at work. "You know how it is, babe. Always trying something new," she said with a wink. I wanted to believe her, but my gut started twisting. Then came the fateful day. It was a Saturday, and I was cleaning the garage when I found an old photo of Lisa and me from our wedding day. It made me nostalgic, and I decided to check her social media for any updates. That's when I stumbled upon a post that made my heart drop. There she was, smiling coyly with a handsome guy in a race car driver's jumpsuit. The caption read, "So proud of my friend Brian, can't wait to see him race." I felt my stomach churn. I recognized the guy. Brian was a well-known race car driver and a local celebrity. But what struck me was the way Lisa was leaning into him, the way they looked so comfortable together. The comments were filled with compliments, and I felt the anger bubbling up inside me. I clicked on the guy's profile and scrolled through his photos. There were plenty of pictures of him racing, but also several of him with Lisa. My heart sank. I didn't want to believe it, but the evidence was piling up. A few days later, I'd had enough. I decided to follow her one evening after she claimed she was going out for drinks with the girls. I drove to the restaurant she mentioned, but once I got there, she wasn't with any girls. Instead, I saw her in a very cozy corner with Brian, laughing, flirting, and leaning in closer than friends ever should. When I confronted her later that night, I was furious. I wanted answers, and I didn't hold back. "So you're just going to deny it, huh?" I shot at her. The look on her face was a mix of shock and a feigned innocence that felt infuriating. "Jake, it's not what it looks like. We were just celebrating," she exclaimed, her voice rising. I quickly realized she was going to lie her way out of this. "You know how Brian is. He's just a friend. You're overreacting." That was the moment everything turned to chaos. I felt betrayed, angry, and heartbroken all at once. What struck me most was the way she looked at me, as if I was the unreasonable one. Her lies were hanging thick in the air, and I didn't know what to do with all this emotion piling up inside me. Somewhere beneath the anger, I felt a deep sadness and a sense of loss for what our marriage once was. As the days passed, I found myself on a roller coaster of emotion, shock, disbelief, anger, and ultimately a deep sadness. It was hard to process the betrayal. The woman I loved, the woman I thought I knew, had chosen to share her life with someone else. The trust I had placed in her shattered, leaving nothing but sharp pieces buried deep in my heart. What was I going to do next? I had to consider my options. The thought of confronting her and working through this was daunting. My mind raced with possibilities, but one thing was clear: I couldn't just let this slide. I felt a need for something, revenge maybe. For the first time, I started to think about what it meant to reclaim my life. Perhaps it was time to take control. I decided that before I would confront her again, I needed a plan. I needed something to show her that I wouldn't be the one left behind. Little did I know, I would find my answer in the sleek lines and roaring engines of a luxury car. That was the beginning of my path toward revenge, a way to reclaim my dignity and show her that I wouldn't just sit back and watch while she played games with my heart. The wheels of my plan were already in motion, and I was ready to take the next step in this twisted journey. The days following my confrontation with Lisa were a blur of emotions. I went from anger to sadness and back again, but one thing remained clear. I was not going to be a passive participant in this mess. I felt like a puppet cut loose from its strings, and now I was free to plot my next move. My mind wandered to the incident with Brian, the race car driver, and every time I thought about it, an overwhelming sense of indignation washed over me. I was done being the victim. With that resolve, I started planning my revenge. I had a whirlwind of ideas racing through my head, and one stood out: buying a luxury car. I could already see it in my mind's eye, a beautiful, powerful machine that would turn heads and make a statement. I wanted something that screamed confidence and success. I needed to show Lisa that I could move on without her, but I wanted to do it in style. I began my research, diving into every detail about luxury cars. I spent hours online, reading reviews, watching videos, and visiting dealerships. There was something exhilarating about the idea of owning a car that commanded respect and admiration. I eventually settled on a brand that I had always admired: a sleek black Audi R8. The thought of driving that beauty down the road, feeling the power of its engine, was intoxicating. I started making arrangements. I needed to make sure I financed it in a way that wouldn't put me in a financial bind. I approached my bank and secured a loan, and before I knew it, I was at the dealership, signing papers and feeling a rush of adrenaline. The sales representative was practically giddy as he handed me the keys, and I felt a sense of accomplishment wash over me. This car was more than just a vehicle. It was a symbol of my resilience and newfound strength. The moment I drove it off the lot, I felt as if I were in a different world. Every turn of the steering wheel, every rev of the engine brought me an exhilarating sense of freedom. I took my time getting accustomed to the car, reveling in the feeling of control and power. I could have driven aimlessly, but I had a plan. I wanted Lisa to see me in this car. I waited for the right moment, and it came sooner than I expected. One evening, Lisa called me. She was unusually upbeat, trying to sound casual. "Hey, babe, what are you up to?" she asked, her voice dripping with false sweetness. I could hear the underlying tension in her tone. "Oh, not much, just out for a drive," I replied, keeping my voice neutral. "You wouldn't believe the new car I picked up." "What new car?" asked, a hint of curiosity piquing her interest. "You know, just something nice. I'll be home in a bit. I want you to see it," I replied, my heart racing with anticipation. When I pulled into the driveway, I saw her standing outside, her expression changing from confusion to disbelief as she laid eyes on the Audi R8. I stepped out, a grin plastered on my face. "What do you think?" I asked, feigning nonchalance. She walked around the car slowly, her jaw dropping with every step. "Is this yours?" "Yep," I replied, allowing a swell of pride to rise within me. Thought I'd treat myself. The look on her face was priceless. She was processing everything, and for the first time I saw a crack in her facade. How could you afford this?" she stammered, clearly taken aback. "Let's just say I've been doing well at work," I said, keeping my tone light. Inside, however, I was reveling in the subtle satisfaction of seeing her discomfort. "Want to take a spin?" "What now?" she asked, hesitating. "Why not? It's a beautiful night," I replied, my smile widening. As we drove, I could feel the tension between us. I made sure to crank up the music and enjoy the ride, but I also watched her reactions closely. The way she bit her lip, the way her eyes glimmered with a mixture of admiration and envy, it was intoxicating. "You know, being a race car driver looks good on Brian," I casually mentioned, watching her flinch out of the corner of my eye. "I bet he would love to take this car for a spin. I've heard he's got some impressive skills." "Jake, come on," she snapped, irritation creeping into her voice. "You don't have to bring him up, it's just a car." "Just a car," I chuckled, glancing at her. "This is more than just a car, Lisa. This is about reclaiming my life." Her silence spoke volumes. I could tell she was struggling to find the right words, and I reveled in the power of the moment. I knew I was getting under her skin, and it felt good. As we pulled back into the driveway, I parked the car and turned to her. "So what do you think? Pretty nice, right?" She nodded reluctantly, but I could sense the conflict in her. I wanted her to feel the weight of her betrayal, to truly understand the implications of what she had done. "Just remember, I'm not going to sit around and watch you play games anymore," I said, my voice steady. "I deserve better than that." "Jake, please," I didn't mean for things to happen the way they did, she replied, her voice dripping with a mix of guilt and annoyance. I thought our marriage was fine. Fine. I echoed, disbelief flooding my veins. You think it's fine to betray your husband with a guy who drives cars for a living. You made your choice, Lisa. The conversation spiraled from there, with her trying to justify her actions while I stood firm, refusing to let her manipulate my emotions. I felt like I was gaining back the control I had lost. The ride had been thrilling in more ways than one. I drove home knowing that the next phase of my plan was falling into place. I was not just reclaiming my life. I was setting the stage for my own version of revenge, one that would make her realize the depth of her mistakes. I had something now that she could never take away from me, self-respect and a newfound sense of power. I was ready for whatever came next, and I had no intention of looking back. After that tense drive in the Audi R8, things began to shift in our household. Lisa was attempting to salvage what was left of our marriage, but every time I glanced at her, I felt a surge of resentment boiling inside me. She had taken something that was so precious to me, and I wasn't just going to let it go. The moments we shared felt tainted, and it became increasingly difficult to engage with her as if nothing had happened. The truth was, I was still wrestling with my feelings. Part of me missed the days when we were happy, laughing, and simply enjoying each other's company. The other part of me couldn't shake off the betrayal. I had allowed her to get away with too much for too long, and I realized I needed to take this a step further. My revenge needed more finesse. I decided to focus on Lisa's weaknesses. I knew she loved socializing, and though she was trying to keep up appearances, I could tell she was embarrassed about being seen with me after what had happened. I wanted to find a way to turn her own friends against her, just a little, to make her feel the consequences of her actions. That's when I heard about a charity gala happening in our city. It was an upscale event that attracted many influential people and socialites, including some of Lisa's closest friends. I decided to buy tickets for the gala, an opportunity to not only flaunt my new luxury car but also to showcase my newfound independence. I had to look sharp, and I set out to find the perfect suit. I remember the day of the gala vividly. I had my suit tailored to fit me perfectly, and when I stepped into the Audi, I felt like $1,000,000. The car gleamed under the streetlights, and I could see heads turning as I drove through the city. When I arrived at the venue, I noticed the way people looked at me, some with envy, others with admiration. It was a rush I had never experienced before. The atmosphere inside the gala was electric. I scanned the room, searching for familiar faces. It didn't take long for me to spot Lisa, dressed to the nines in a stunning red gown, surrounded by a group of her friends. I felt a surge of adrenaline at the sight of her, a mix of excitement and determination coursing through my veins. I was ready for this. I made my way over, and the moment she saw me, her smile faltered. "Jake," she exclaimed, clearly surprised to see me there. "You came." "Of course I did," I replied, flashing a confident grin. "Can't miss a party when I've got this beauty parked outside." I gestured towards the Audi, and I could see her friends whispering among themselves, their expressions shifting from surprise to intrigue. One of her friends, Megan, approached me, her eyes lighting up. "Oh wow, Jake, this car is incredible. I didn't know you had it." "Just picked it up," I said, keeping my tone casual. "Thought I'd treat myself after everything." Lisa's face turned red, and I could see her fuming silently. I relished the feeling of power, the way I was suddenly the center of attention. I was no longer the guy who had been hurt. I was the man who was moving on, and it felt incredible. Throughout the evening, I mingled with Lisa's friends, laughing and engaging in light-hearted conversations. I could see the growing discomfort on Lisa's face as she tried to manage the situation. She wanted to pull me aside to talk, but I kept deflecting her attempts. I was having too much fun watching her squirm. At one point, I overheard her whispering to a friend, "I can't believe he showed up here like this. It's so embarrassing." The words stung, but they also fueled my determination. I wanted her to realize just how much she had taken for granted. Later in the evening, as the charity auction began, I decided to participate. I raised my hand to bid on a luxury vacation package, drawing more attention. Lisa's friends cheered me on, and I could see Lisa's annoyance grow. She was standing to the side, arms crossed, her jaw set tight. When I won the auction, I felt like I was on top of the world. As I walked back to the table where Lisa stood, I could see the mixture of disbelief and resentment on her face. "Why are you doing this?" she snapped, her voice low but tense. "Doing what?" I asked innocently. "Just having a good time, isn't that what you wanted? Don't act like you're some big shot now, Jake," she hissed. "You're making a fool of yourself." "Am I?" I replied, raising an eyebrow. "Seems like everyone else is having a great time. Maybe you just can't handle seeing me happy." The tension between us was palpable, and I could see her frustration boiling over. I was enjoying this too much. I wanted her to see the man she had pushed away, the man who was no longer going to be a pushover. As the night wore on, I continued to engage with her friends, laughing and enjoying myself while Lisa stood aside, clearly uncomfortable. I could see some of her friends beginning to question her decisions, and it filled me with satisfaction. I wanted her to feel isolated, to understand that her actions had consequences. Finally, as the evening began to wind down and people started to leave, I saw Lisa cornered by some of her friends who were clearly asking her about the rift in our marriage. I watched from a distance as she tried to brush it off, but I could see the cracks in her facade. The once confident woman was now on the defensive, struggling to maintain her image. As I prepared to leave, I made my way over to her. "You okay?" I asked, genuinely curious but also wanting to press the issue. "Of course I'm fine," she replied, her voice strained. "Just tired, it's been a long night." "Right," I said, smirking slightly. "You didn't seem tired when you were flirting with Brian." Her eyes widened in shock. "Jake, stop it, this isn't the place for this." "Neither was your affair, Lisa," I shot back, my tone low but firm. "You made your choices and now you're experiencing the consequences. Maybe next time you'll think twice about what you throw away." Without waiting for a response, I turned on my heel and walked out of the venue, feeling a rush of adrenaline. The night had gone exactly as I'd planned. I had successfully shifted the power dynamic and shown Lisa that I was no longer the person she could manipulate. Driving home, I felt a sense of satisfaction wash over me. I had taken control of the narrative, and for the first time in a long while I felt free. I was no longer just Jake, her husband. I was Jake, a man with ambitions, a man who could stand on his own. This was only the beginning. I still had more plans to execute, more layers to peel away. I wanted Lisa to experience the full weight of her choices, and I was more than ready to deliver. The thrill of the chase had turned into a game of strategy, and I intended to win. After the gala, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. I had taken my first steps in reclaiming my life, and the exhilaration of it fueled my resolve to go even further. I knew I wanted to push Lisa's buttons, but I also realized that my actions needed to come with a sense of direction. I didn't want my revenge to be a haphazard act. I wanted it to be calculated and impactful. The next few days were a whirlwind of emotions. Lisa tried to engage me in conversations about our relationship, but I was guarded. I was polite but distant, opting to focus on my work in my new car. I began taking long drives, relishing the feel of the wind against my face and the roar of the engine beneath me. Each ride was a reminder that I was moving forward, leaving the past behind. One afternoon, I received a text from Lisa. "Can we talk? I think we need to sort things out." My heart sank a bit. Part of me wanted to have an honest conversation, the other part wanted to keep the tension alive as long as possible. I chose the latter. I replied with a simple, "I'm busy. Let's talk later." That evening, I decided to do something unexpected. I reached out to one of my old friends, Mark, who had always been a gearhead and had a passion for cars. I told him about my situation and my newfound love for the Audi R8. To my surprise, he was excited to hear from me and suggested we go for a drive together. It was a chance to unwind and share my experiences, and I welcomed the distraction. We met up at a local diner before heading out. I could feel the excitement building as we discussed cars, racing, and life in general. Mark had recently gotten into amateur racing, and he invited me to come watch one of his races at a local track. "You'll love it, Jake. The adrenaline rush is like nothing else," he said, his eyes lighting up at the thought. I considered it. It would be a great opportunity to have fun, and I could show off the Audi as well. But more than that, I saw it as a way to further establish my independence from Lisa. I agreed to go, and we set a date for the upcoming weekend. When the day of the race arrived, I felt an electric mix of anticipation and excitement. I arrived at the track early, eager to soak in the atmosphere. The smell of burning rubber and gasoline filled the air, and I could see the shimmering heat rising from the asphalt. I parked the Audi in a prime spot, making sure it caught everyone's eye, especially Lisa's. As I made my way to the grandstand, I saw Lisa walking toward me, her expression uncertain. She had decided to show up, and I felt a rush of satisfaction knowing that I could still catch her off guard. "You're here," I said, feigning surprise. "Yeah, I wanted to see what you were up to," she replied, her tone almost nonchalant, but I could tell she was intrigued by the whole scene. "I think you'll love it," I said, gesturing toward the pit area. "Mark is racing today, and he's really good. You might even want to cheer him on." "Oh, I'm sure he'll do great," she said, her voice laced with sarcasm. "Just like the great Jake who bought a flashy car to impress." I shrugged, not letting her digs penetrate my growing confidence. "Whatever helps you sleep at night, Lisa. Let's just enjoy the show." Throughout the day, I reveled in the thrill of the races, the roar of engines, and the camaraderie among fellow race enthusiasts. Mark was in top form, and I cheered him on loudly, reveling in the attention. I glanced at Lisa several times, noting her increasingly frustrated demeanor as the day progressed. She was trying to play it cool, but I could see the annoyance bubbling beneath the surface. During one of the breaks, I decided to take a walk around the pits. I wanted to give Lisa a chance to feel the weight of the situation. I spotted Mark and a few of his racing friends, and we struck up a conversation about cars and racing strategies. I could see Lisa watching from a distance, her arms crossed and her expression darkening. "Isn't this great?" I said to Mark, laughing. "I never thought I'd find myself here, but now I can't imagine missing it." "Welcome to the world of racing, my friend," Mark replied, clapping me on the back. "You'll have to join me for more races. We could use a good pit crew." As I laughed and chatted, I noticed Lisa walking over, her demeanor shifting from annoyed to confrontational. "Jake, can we talk? This is ridiculous," she said, her voice edged with frustration. "Sure, let's go over there," I said, pointing to a quieter area near the concession stand. I wanted to hear what she had to say, but I also wanted to keep her on her toes. "Why are you acting like this?" she asked once we were away from prying eyes. "You're treating this like some big game." "Because it is a game, Lisa," I said, my tone steady. "You made your choices, and now I'm making mine. I'm not going to sit around and wallow in self-pity while you flit around with your new friends." "I didn't flit around, I made a mistake," she exclaimed, her voice rising. "Can't we just talk about this like adults?" "Talk? You mean like how you talked to Brian?" I shot back. "I don't think so. You had your chance to be an adult when you decided to cheat on me." Her expression morphed from frustration to desperation. "Jake, I know I messed up, but I love you. Can't we try to work this out?" "I don't know if I can believe that anymore," I replied, leveling my gaze at her. "You've put me through a lot, Lisa. I'm not just going to forget it because you say you love me now." She took a step closer, her voice softening. "I'm trying, Jake. I really am. I miss what we had." Could feel my heart wavering, but I pushed it aside. I had come too far to let my emotions derail me. "And what about Brian? Do you miss him too?" Her eyes flitted away, and in that moment I knew I had struck a nerve. I don't know what I was thinking. It was a mistake," she stammered, her voice weak. I took a deep breath and stepped back, creating distance between us. "You need to understand something, Lisa. This isn't just about you. You hurt me, and there are consequences. I'm not going to be your safety net while you figure things out." With that, I turned and walked away, leaving her standing there, wrestling with her thoughts. I rejoined Mark and the others, feeling a sense of triumph. I had stood my ground, and I felt stronger for it. As the races continued, I fell back into enjoying the day, laughing and cheering with newfound friends. I could see Lisa trying to engage with her friends, but there was an unmistakable shift. The balance of power had shifted in my favor. By the end of the day, I knew the game was just beginning, and I wasn't going to back down. I had taken control of the narrative, and I was ready for whatever came next. Lisa still had a long way to go if she wanted to claim any part of my heart again. The thrill of racing and the taste of sweet revenge were keeping me energized, and I was ready to see how far I could take this. I wanted her to realize just how much she had taken for granted before it was too late. After the race day, things in my life continued to evolve. I could feel a palpable change in the air, not just in my relationship with Lisa, but within myself. I had stepped into a new role, one where I was no longer the passive husband, but rather the man in control of his own life. The thrill of racing and the excitement of my Audi R8 had reignited a fire within me, and I was ready to embrace it fully. The days turned into weeks, and while Lisa continued to reach out, attempting to mend what had been broken, I remained steadfast in my resolve. I didn't want to rush into forgiveness or reconciliation. I needed her to understand the gravity of her actions, and more importantly, I needed to show her that I was moving forward with or without her. One Sunday afternoon, I decided to invite Mark over for a car day. He brought along his girlfriend, Sarah, who was just as passionate about cars as we were. We spent the day polishing the Audi, exchanging tips on car maintenance, and discussing upcoming races. As we chatted, I could feel the camaraderie building, and this sense of belonging was something I hadn't felt in a long time. Around midday, I received a text from Lisa asking if she could come over. I hesitated, unsure of whether I wanted to mix my new life with my past, but part of me was curious to see how she would react to my newfound confidence. I told her to come by, and I mentally prepared for what was about to unfold. When she arrived, I could see that she had made an effort. She wore a casual yet stylish outfit, and her hair was perfectly done. There was an air of hesitation about her, and I found myself intrigued by how she would navigate this encounter. "Hey," she said, her voice softening as she stepped inside. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything." "Not at all," I replied, trying to keep my tone neutral. "Just hanging out with some friends." Mark and Sarah were chatting away, and I introduced Lisa to them. She forced a smile, but I could see the tension in her posture. We gathered outside to admire the Audi, and I could feel her eyes lighting up as she approached the car. "Wow, Jake, this is stunning," she remarked, her fingers brushing against the sleek bodywork. "You really went all out." "Thanks," I said, trying to gauge her reaction. "I've been enjoying it a lot." "Looks like you're getting into the racing scene now," she said, glancing at Mark and Sarah. "I'm happy for you." "Yeah, it's a blast," I replied, feeling a swell of pride. "Mark here is teaching me the ropes. Maybe I'll even try racing one day." Lisa's smile faded slightly, and I could sense a flicker of regret in her eyes. It was as if she realized that she had missed out on something significant in my life. "I wish you told me sooner," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "Maybe if you'd been around more you would have known." I shot back, my tone sharper than intended. I was still testing the waters, and I wanted to see how she would react. "Jake, I'm trying," she said, her voice rising slightly. "I want to be here for you." "But are you really here for me?" I asked, stepping closer. "Or are you here because you see what you've lost? Because this isn't just about the car or the races. It's about trust, Lisa. You shattered that." Her expression shifted from defensiveness to vulnerability. "I know I made a terrible mistake. I've regretted it every day since," she admitted, her voice trembling. "I want to fix this. I want to earn your trust back." As I looked into her eyes, I saw genuine remorse, but I wasn't sure if it was enough. "Trust isn't built in a day, Lisa," I said slowly. "You have to understand that I'm not going to just forget what happened. I need to see real change. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." She replied earnestly. "I'll go to counseling, I'll do anything, I just want the chance to prove it to you." I took a deep breath, weighing her words. Part of me wanted to believe her, to give her that chance, but another part of me screamed caution. I had been hurt before, and I didn't want to fall back into the same trap. "How about we take it slow?" I suggested, my tone softening. "We can start with hanging out more, just like today. I want to see if we can rebuild something, but it's going to take time." Lisa nodded, relief washing over her features. "I can do that," she said, a hint of a smile returning. "Thank you for giving me a chance." As the afternoon progressed, we all chatted and laughed, but I could feel the underlying tension still present. It was nice to see Lisa trying, but I was hyper-aware of what had happened. I had to ensure that my own feelings didn't cloud my judgment. After Mark and Sarah left, Lisa lingered a bit longer. "Can I take a ride in the Audi?" she asked tentatively. I hesitated for a moment before nodding. "Sure, but I'm driving," I replied, wanting to maintain a sense of control. We climbed into the car, and as I started the engine, the familiar roar filled the air. There was something profoundly exhilarating about the way the car responded to my touch. We drove through the winding roads, the landscape blurring around us as we picked up speed. As we cruised, I glanced over at Lisa, who was smiling, the wind tousling her hair. For a brief moment, it felt like the past was fading away. But as I navigated the turns, I couldn't shake the feeling that beneath this joy, there was still tension waiting to unravel. "Jake, this is amazing," she exclaimed, her laughter ringing out. "I can't believe how fast we're going." I felt a rush of adrenaline, and for a moment, it felt like we were back to the carefree days of our relationship. But the truth still loomed large, and I knew I couldn't let my guard down completely. We returned home, and as we stepped out of the car, I felt a mixture of hope and apprehension. Maybe there was a way forward, but it would take consistent effort from both sides. "Thanks for today," she said, her voice sincere. "I really appreciate you giving me this chance." I nodded, but I knew the journey ahead would be a long one. "Let's take it one step at a time, okay?" I replied, wanting to set clear boundaries. As she left, I felt a sense of uncertainty. It was as if I was standing at a crossroads, unsure of which path to choose. I had tasted the sweetness of revenge, the thrill of independence, and the power that came with reclaiming my life. But now, I was left to ponder whether I could truly move forward with Lisa or if it was time to let go for good. The next few days would be pivotal, and I knew I had to stay focused on my own happiness. I was determined to ensure that whatever happened next, I would be the one in control. The thrill of racing had taught me valuable lessons about speed, precision, and strategy. Lessons I was more than ready to apply to my life. And if Lisa was truly sincere about making amends, she would have to prove it. To me, on my terms. I was ready for the challenge. In the days following our drive, I felt a cautious optimism growing within me. Lisa seemed genuinely committed to making things right, reaching out more often and trying to engage in conversations that mattered. But a part of me remained skeptical. I had been hurt, and while I wanted to believe in second chances, I needed to see consistent effort from her. I decided to give Lisa a few small opportunities to show her commitment. We agreed to meet for coffee a couple of times a week, just to talk and reconnect. I kept the meetings light and casual, testing the waters to see if she was truly willing to put in the work. Each time we met, she shared how she was attending counseling and looking into ways to better herself, which gave me a glimmer of hope. But then came the day that made everything shift once more. I was at work when I received a call from Mark. "Jake, you won't believe this, but I just found out that Brian is racing in a big event next weekend, and he's invited Lisa to be part of his pit crew." The news hit me like a punch to the gut. My mind began racing. Brian, the man who had been a thorn in my side since the day I discovered Lisa's infidelity, was back on the scene, and this time he was attempting to draw her deeper into his world. I felt a blend of anger and betrayal swell within me. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice edged with disbelief. "Yeah, I heard it straight from one of my friends who's involved in organizing the race. I thought you should know," Mark said. "I mean, she's still your wife, right?" "Yeah, she is. Thanks for telling me." I hung up, trying to process everything. It was one thing for Lisa to say she wanted to make amends, but venturing off to play pit crew for the guy who had brought our marriage crashing down felt like a betrayal all over again. I decided to confront Lisa. When I saw her that evening, I tried to remain calm, but I could feel the tension simmering beneath my skin. "Hey, can we talk?" "Of course," she said, her expression brightening momentarily. I took a deep breath, trying to choose my words carefully. "Mark just told me about Brian's race next weekend and how you're on his pit crew." Her face fell. "Jake, why would you even consider that?" I interrupted, feeling the frustration bubbling to the surface. "After everything that happened, how could you put yourself in that situation?" "It's not like that," She defended. I just thought it would be fun to support a friend and be involved in the racing community. Fun, really. I retorted, my voice rising. You think it's appropriate to go be around him after everything? Jake, you're overreacting. She argued, her voice rising to match mine. We're just friends now. I thought you were okay with that. I'm trying to be part of a community you're into. A community? I scoffed, my anger boiling over. This community is built on the same betrayal that nearly destroyed our marriage. You think I'm going to sit back and watch you run off to play pit crew for the guy who cheated with you? She looked taken aback, as if I had struck a nerve. I didn't cheat. With him, Jake, it was just a mistake, a lapse in judgment. I've told you that. Yes, and I'm still trying to figure out how to trust you again. This is just adding fuel to the fire. You have no idea how this makes me feel, I shot back. Maybe I wouldn't have to guess if you'd let me in, she pleaded, her eyes bright with emotion. I'm trying, Jake, I'm trying to make this work. But it doesn't feel like you're trying hard enough. I spat. You can't just show up for coffee and expect everything to magically heal overnight. This is deeper than that. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest. I need to think about what this means for us. If you go to that race, I don't know how I can move forward. With that, I turned away, leaving her standing there, visibly shaken. I didn't want to push her away, but I also knew I couldn't play the fool again. That night, I sat in the Audi, staring at the gleaming paint under the moonlight. The car had become a symbol of my strength, testament to my resolve. I needed to figure out what I wanted moving forward. Did I still love Lisa? Yes. But could I trust her enough to rebuild what we had? That was a different question altogether. The next few days felt heavy. I saw Lisa trying to reach out, but I kept my distance. I needed to assess where I stood and what I was willing to accept. I eventually decided that I wouldn't let her go to the race. It wasn't just about the event. It was about my self-respect and not allowing myself to be hurt again. On the day of the race, I sent her a text that simply read, I don't think it's a good idea for you to go. Minutes later, my phone buzzed. It was her. Jake, please, I really want to be there for Mark and be part of something you love. Can't you see? I took a moment to respond, weighing my words carefully. I understand that, but I need you to understand that this is about boundaries. If you go, it'll feel like you're choosing him over us, and I can't accept that right now. The silence that followed was deafening. I knew I had put my foot down, but it felt necessary. When her reply finally came, it read, I need to think about this too. I spent the day at home, feeling a mixture of anxiety and relief wash over me. I didn't know if this was the breaking point or a necessary step back to clarity. A few hours later, I received another text. I won't go. I can see that this is hurting you and I want to work on us. I just hope you'll let me prove it. I felt a wave of emotion wash over me. Her decision to stay behind was a step forward, but it didn't erase the past. I knew there would still be challenges ahead, but I also knew that trust had to be rebuilt, one small step at a time. In the weeks that followed, we began to rebuild. We started attending counseling together, and slowly but surely we began to communicate more openly about our feelings, the pain, the betrayal, and the desire to reconnect. It was a long process, and there were still moments of tension, but I saw Lisa making a genuine effort to change. Gradually, I felt the walls I had built begin to crumble. I let myself hope that we might find a way back to each other. The journey wasn't going to be easy, but I was in control now, and I was willing to navigate this path on my own terms. In the end, I realized that the process of healing is not linear. It's filled with twists and turns, much like racing itself. I was committed to ensuring that whatever lay ahead, I would face it with clarity and strength. I had been through the fire, and I had come out the other side stronger. I knew that I would always carry the lessons from this experience forward, and whether Lisa and I would find a way back to a healthy relationship remained to be seen. But for now, I was ready to take that chance, knowing that I wouldn't lose myself in the process again. I had the power to shape my own destiny, and that was the ultimate victory.